These are the specific preparation tasks I did to the BMW S1000RR to get it ready for the Texas Mile this week. The next mod are these lowering straps. And the idea with it is that when the bike is under acceleration, the rear wheel is trying to grip and the chain can climb, and it basically raises the front end. And if you start to wheelie, you have to back off the throttle to get the front end back down. Or worse, the electronics of the bike will actually cut spark with the anti-wheelie feature on something like this. And if the spark cuts, then you're losing power even worse. So ideally what you want is that front end just skipping down the runway. The straps basically allow you to compress the whole front end so that it doesn't start to lift with the front wheel off the ground and then keep going and bring the wheel up. Keeps it down and makes it more resistant to wheeling because it's pulling the whole weight right away. The trick is that because I'm going to be going down a runway at high speeds that I know is a little bit bumpy, I don't want to lose all the compliance of my shocks and end up becoming unstable. I also don't want to strap it down so much that I change the geometry of the bike and make it unstable. And I've never done these before, so this is going to be a learning experience and hopefully not a painful one. I'm going to break down and read the instructions since I don't know what I'm doing. The bike is already on the center stand in the rear to keep it stable and level. Now I'll start by taking the rear bracket bolts out and installing the brackets on each side. I'm going to mount them with the recess side inward. So in other words, they'll fit further this way versus sticking out. Okay? So the recess is on the inside there. I'm going to start the threads back on this one again so the caliper doesn't actually lose any position. Now you'll notice on the S1000RR you have this bracket for the sensor wire. I'm going to put that on the outside. That way this bracket stays flush against the caliper. Again, just moving it to the outside and then slip that bolt back in. Okay, that's snug. Now I'll torque those in place. That one. And that one. Per the instructions, I cut this strap off and bolted this thing in place. It is a lock nut, so it won't vibrate off. You don't want to over tighten it. There is slop in here, you'll see, so it rotates easy. I don't know why it makes a difference, but it says to install this one on this side. So the one with the buckle on the left side of the bike. Okay, before I tighten this down, I'm going to try to route this strap through the bike now. You don't want to twist the strap, and you don't want to grab any of the cables or brake lines or anything on the way. So I guess I'll just kind of have to figure out how to feed it up through there. Okay, the strap now goes up into the body, coming up straight over the lower triple tree, under everything, around the front, no twist, comes back around again under everything, no twist, straight down to this attachment point. Here's the part I don't really know for sure, so I'm gonna have to think through this and see if it works. This is an indicator for how far down the shock is moving, where it bottoms out. I've adjusted the suspension, everything's set up the way I want it. Now as far as how much to compress it with these straps, I don't want to create something so stiff that it becomes unstable or dangerous or something when I'm going down that runway. So what I'm going to do is I know that this is where it sits statically, and when I get on the bike with all my gear, it's going to come down to here or so. And I know that when I'm going down the runway, me sitting on it on a perfectly smooth surface would be about that same point. If I hit a bump, the shock is going to come up and inward And I just want to make sure that it's able to come back out on the rebound and stay in contact with the surface. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on, and with me and my gear statically loading the thing at what you would measure for sag, wherever that point is, that's where I'm going to adjust the strap and bring it down to that point. That way it's as reduced likelihood of a wheelie on takeoff, but still being able to rebound when I hit bumps going down the runway. So that's what I'm going to do. Now I just need to figure out that sag again with me loaded on the bike. Okay, so this is my statically loaded position. Now that we're at our static sag line with me weighted down, I want to measure this to make sure I don't lose it. I need to compress the front enough to pull this tight and then be able to just use that to hold it down, I guess. All right, it's actually just a little bit, just barely beyond it, which is probably okay. It's not that much. I mean, it's like a millimeter delta. So if I tighten everything right there, that should be good. Yeah, that's at most a millimeter. That's good there. I'm going to tighten that. And there's that side. Now I need to tie this loose stuff up. So I'm going to run that up to the top where it's not getting tangled up in my wheel. And what are warning stickers? It's what we remove because they're added weight. All right, it's all strapped down. Still moves free, nothing's binding up. What I did is wrap the extra strap around this fork tube and tied it all down solid. In my infinite wisdom, I filled up gas the other day and I have 135 miles worth of fuel in the tank. But I have to get that down to almost nothing because I'm going to have to pour race fuel in when I get it. This is never fun, but it's how you have to get gas out. As long as the can is lower than the tank, that's all that really matters. Now you just wash the level, so you got to have something you can see it in, and just make sure you don't overfill it because it'll probably take more than one of these to drain that whole tank. Just took it out and rode it down to like 26 miles left on the range. The low fuel light's on, so that should be good enough for starting with our race fuel. Remove the radar detector, the mirrors, and the blinkers for whatever weight and drag savings I can get. Adjusting the air pressure on the tires. I did about 38.9 in the front and 43 on the rear, so it's about 4 or 5 pounds higher than what I usually run them for the streets, and that should just allow a little bit smaller contact patch, in theory a little bit less friction as it's rotating anyway. That's the theory. It seems to run a little easier that way because you're not deforming the tire every time it rotates. It's not as good for takeoff. A lot of times drag racers will lower their tire pressure because they want the tire to flatten out and increase the contact patch when they take off. But with this being a 1 mile, it's more important to make it as easy for the bike to go fast, the big part of it, not as much at the takeoff. So it's a little bit different strategy. That should do it. It's clean because a clean bike is going to be faster. It's less drag. My number, 3310 for the race. The bike is as ready as I can make it now. The only thing left is when I actually get to the event, I'll apply race tape to make it a little bit more aerodynamic. Other than that, the S1K should be ready to hit its new high at the Texas Mile this week. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you want to learn more about how to enjoy amazing machines like this.